I would say create video about those cases that you lost. And everybody would come up to me and say, are you kidding? I can't talk about the case that I lost. I can't talk about the case that I didn't win. I said, you are 100% wrong. Just because you lost a case doesn't mean you're not a good attorney. Everybody loses a case, especially if they're a trial attorney, at one point or another.
You suddenly lose everything. You lose the law firm, all of your clients, your marketing budget, your reputation. None of those plaques and awards on the wall mean anything. And you only have 30 days to get it all back. That is the topic of today's Lawyer Marketing Show. I'm Dustin Sanchez. You're watching DustinSanchezTV.com. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Dustin Sanchez TV Lawyer Marketing Show. We have an exciting and great guest today, who I call the OG of lawyer marketing, attorney Gerry Oginski. I believe I am pronouncing that right.
You are.
All right. I've been following Gerry. Probably he's one of the first lawyers I ever followed on the YouTube, right? When I wanted to start my own firm. Gerry is on YouTube as the @NY Medical Malpractice, right? You can find him on YouTube. You can find him at oginski-law.com. You ought to check out his Amazon author page. I'll just read off a couple of the titles there. Beyond the ER doors, beyond the ER doors. I'll perhaps flash that on the screen. Secrets of a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. Secrets of lawyer video marketing in the age of YouTube. If you haven't checked that out, you got to, because you got the OG here today. Today's topic for our podcast is simply this. What if you lost everything? You know, someone like Gerry, he's already made it. You know, he grinded it out, and now he's just enjoying the fruits of being a successful lawyer. But what if he woke up tomorrow and had to start from ground zero? No contacts, no marketing budget, no paralegal, nothing. It's just everything that's in here and guts, you know, grit and guts that got him there in the first place. We're going to talk about what would you do in the next 30 days to start over and get it all back. Welcome to the show, Gerry. I'm extremely excited to have you. Please introduce yourself for the audience.
Thank you, Dustin. I appreciate you having me on. I'm Gerry Oginski. I am a New York medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. And I've been following you, Dustin, for quite a long time, and I love your journey, and I love hearing the stories about what you have accomplished, and I'm amazed, and I love seeing your successes and seeing, importantly, the process of how you help other lawyers, not just with their practice, but their mind, their body, and it's really remarkable, and I thank you for all that you've done.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. We got a little love fest going on here. Well, listen, Gerry, if anyone can help attorneys out there get their start, get to where they want to go in their career, you are the guy, in my opinion. And obviously in many attorneys' opinions, because you've got some, nearly 14,000 subscribers on YouTube, 3,600 videos, probably millions of views at this point. But I want to focus on what if you had to start over tomorrow, you know, day one. You wake up, you're at ground zero on day one. What are you going to do, brother?
The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull out my phone and start creating video. And one of the first videos I'm going to create is talking to my viewer, my ideal client, about something they need to know. And what do they need to know? You are the attorney. You are someone who has the knowledge and the experience and the training, and you handle these cases every day. And it doesn't, I mean, me personally, I handle personal injury and medical malpractice cases in New York. It doesn't matter what your area of legal expertise is. You have some knowledge and training and experience in your field of law. The best thing you can do, in my opinion, if you're starting over from ground zero, take out your phone and start talking on video. And just like Dustin says, creating video is a phenomenal way to connect with your ideal client. Your ideal clients are online. They are looking, they're scrolling, they are searching. many times for direct information about what's impacting them and things that happen to them. Other times they're just simply scrolling for entertainment, and they happen to come across something that you've created that an algorithm thinks is related to you. And now they don't necessarily need your services, but over the next couple of days, weeks, months, they see you over and over and over again, and they begin to watch some of your content, and they realize, wait a second, this is really interesting. This has a relationship to me, and now all of a sudden you start building trust with someone who never even knew you existed. In my opinion, creating educational-based content to teach someone something they did not know is the 100% best way to start over from scratch when you've got nothing there. And the key reason is because it is the best way to communicate with people whom you don't know. And it's the best way to establish relationships with people whom you don't know. You know, in marketing, there's something called a cold relationship and a warm relationship. And a cold relationship would be when you get somebody calling you out of the blue and saying, hey, I want to sell you solar panels or, you know, a car warranty. You don't know this person from a hole in the wall. You don't need this product or service. Click, you hang up. Exactly. On the other hand, a warm relationship is someone you have touched before. And when I say touched, I don't mean literally, but someone who has seen you over the past couple of weeks. They've scrolled past your messages on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube. And now, all of a sudden, they have a need because somebody heard something and they were involved in an accident. And next thing you know, they want to know, how much time do I have to bring a case? What type of damages can I sue for? And all of a sudden, these questions start mulling in the back of their head, and they stop and watch one of your videos. And then they watch another. That leads them to another. Next thing you know, you're getting a call that says, hey, Gerry, I just saw, you know, some of your videos online. Can you answer my question? Can you help me answer a problem I have? Of course I can. That's why I'm here. Many years ago, just when the internet was getting started, I started to learn about this subject called education-based marketing. And I'd never heard about it. I never knew what it was. And I didn't understand it until somebody told me that content is king. You know, that the search engines love content. Okay, fine. What does that mean? It meant, and I learned that it meant, that if you put out useful information that people were searching for, Google would reward you and the people who are searching by connecting your content with what they're searching for. Okay, great. But then this whole concept of education-based marketing came out about the same time, but it came from regular marketing guys, people who were getting very smart and not just being pushy salesmen. They were the guys who said, how can we use traditional marketing methods to teach and educate our ideal clients and consumers? And they started putting these educational pieces of content in a magazine, in a postcard, in the Yellow Pages ad. And now instead of having a traditional thing saying, call me because I'm great, and I've been doing this 25 years without giving any explanation or reason, now all of a sudden they're providing detailed stories. Here's what you need to know if you've been involved in a medical malpractice case. Here are 3 things you need to know if you believe a doctor was careless and caused you injury. Here are 2 things you need to know if the following things have happened. And now they were putting that into traditional mainstream media. And when the internet came around, now people for attorneys, at least in the beginning, they didn't know what to do with that. They didn't know how to use the internet. They thought that the website and our web pages were nothing more than a glorified business card. And I got the idea about how cool it would be as I'm learning about this concept about teaching and educational-based marketing to put some of that on my website. And this literally was at the very beginning of websites. And I'm like, okay, I have nothing else to do. I have a small caseload. I'm a solo practitioner. I need to figure out something because I don't have the money to generate massive advertisements on TV or on the radio or on the yellow pages. I'll tell you a quick story, a side story. Finally, after a couple of years of trying to market myself, I took out a full page ad in the yellow pages, thinking that because all the other attorneys in New York were doing it, that somehow this must be working. Well, my ad was page 8 of the lawyer section, and the only calls I got were from people who were rejected from the first 7 lawyers in the book, and I got all the rejects. And I only got one case out of it that actually just paid for the advertising cost for the yellow pages. So I was failing at every single marketing method as a solo practitioner, and I was struggling to find ways to make ends meet because I had a small caseload. I'm a solo practitioner at this point, and I didn't know what else to do. And because I didn't have a budget, I didn't have money to throw at advertising, now all of a sudden I'm learning from really smart people like a guy named Trey Ryder and a marketing guy named David Fry, F-R-E-Y, who were phenomenal marketers, something about education-based marketing. So as we're progressing, I said, you know what? There's this video thing that's just started to come out. And there's a website online with a really, really weird name that's putting, videos online. And the name of that website was called YouTube. And I went on there and I'm like, no attorneys are on there, or they're putting their commercials up there. Who's watching video online? Who's watching an attorney commercial? This is ridiculous. So I said, what if I had created a number of blog posts and articles that were educational in nature. I said, what if I somehow came up with a way to put that content in a video? And through a lot of trial and error and a lot of expense, thinking I needed the most professional video equipment ever, I ultimately, after pulling out my hair many, many long nights, I was able to get some really crappy video up online. And I mean that truly. You look back at that stuff, and the first couple of videos were horrible. But a couple of weeks later, I would get calls. Hey, Mr. Oginski, I just saw your video online about this topic. Can I ask you some questions? And I said, sure. And now I began to realize, you know what? People are actually searching for information about how these cases work. And I thought, if I can get calls from a couple of these crappy videos, I'm just going to keep making more of them. And I'm going to keep coming up with more educational material. And the more I did that, the better I got making my presentation, the better I got creating content, the better I got in understanding what people are looking for. And I've been a marketing student ever since. And going back to your question that you raised at the beginning, Dustin, which was, what would you do if you lost everything and now you had to start over? The simplest, easiest, quickest way to start generating a following of people who know you, who get to know you, get to like you, get to trust you, is with video, like what we're doing now. And it could be a simple interview like we're doing now. It could be you talking about content people need to know about. It could be interviewing someone else on the street or someone else about the topics that you're involved in. All of these things are things that you should be doing immediately. And don't say you don't have the equipment because you got a phone in your pocket. You can get all the fancy stuff later, a microphone and all these stuff that you need to do to get great quality audio. That's all nonsense. Pull out the phone, start talking, tell them who you are. And you know what? I would be as real as possible and tell them that you've hit rock bottom. Tell them you're starting over. Tell them like Dustin did that his house was totally destroyed and now he has to go live in an RV, he has to go live in a camper, he has to go live on the streets for the next couple of weeks until the insurance company comes, and now you're fighting with the insurance company, and this is what you do for a living. And I would be as honest and straightforward, and people relate to you that way. And they begin to understand you, and they see that you're a human being, not just a stuffy old shirt wearing a three-piece suit behind, some bookcase full of law books in front of a desk that separates you as if it's a blockade, like you go into a bank with plexiglass in between you and the client. You're a human. You're talking to somebody who's in need of your services. So take the time to be a human being and connect with them on that exact level. Video is the absolute best way to do that.
Wow, you just gave a marketing masterclass there, Gerry. Any lawyer that runs with that advice is going to see massive results. What I noticed you said is day one, I'm picking up my phone and making a video. What you didn't say is day one, I'm going to go rent a studio. I'm going to rent a soundboard. I'm going to hire the best videographer in my town. And we're going to make this high production video. What you said was I'm pulling the thing out of my pocket and maybe I'm going to turn it like this or I'm going to turn it like this. And I'm just going to talk to my potential clients. And I've seen the evolution of your videos over time. The production, you used to do a lot more. I think you did make them in a studio to begin with. But now when I go to your channel, you're just walking and talking. And like looks like you're in Miami or something. I don't know. But you're walking and talking in a really nice neighborhood and just probably getting some exercise and racking up a few clients. What's your thought process there on the equipment I might need to get started?
You hit it right on the head. You don't need any equipment at this point. Years ago, you needed tons of equipment and you needed a big learning curve to understand how all that worked. And that was the mistake that I made at the very beginning because there was nobody in the country who was teaching other people how to do this. It hadn't evolved yet. But now it's become so simple where you just open up your phone, go onto photos, click the video button, and just start talking. And okay, you're not going to get perfect audio. You're not going to have perfect lighting. Everything's not going to be perfect. The reality is you don't need it to be perfect. Just like you mentioned, I go around, I'm on vacation right now. So I will spend my morning just going for a great walk, getting some exercise, and I will pull out my phone and an idea pops in my head and I will create a whole series of videos that will help me for the next couple of weeks that I can post both on Instagram and on YouTube that I know my ideal clients will look for. And that is the way that I personally love doing it. I don't wear a suit and tie to shoot my videos. A long time ago I did. I wear a t-shirt, a baseball hat, my sunglasses. That's what I feel comfortable in doing, and that's what people love listening to. I find I don't need all the fancy equipment. And I find that my viewers don't care whether I'm wearing a suit and have my arms crossed and I'm in a fancy studio and it's like I'm on CNN. They don't care. All they care about is that I am human, that I'm relatable to them, that they can have a conversation with me, that they can say, hey, this is just like we're having a conversation at my kitchen table on a Sunday morning over a cup of coffee. And that's who I want to be. Not everybody's like that, and that's okay. But for me personally, that's who I have evolved on video to be. And that's my personality. And you have to find your own personality. And if that works for you, great. If you still feel comfortable getting all dressed up, that works great too. But you have to be human, and you have to just take out your camera, your phone, and just start talking. And don't be afraid of how it looks or how it sounds. Just be as real as possible. And when you do that, you come across as authentic, you come across as genuine, and people start to appreciate that. And they begin to trust you. And just like meeting somebody new for the very first time, how do they get to know you and to trust you? By having a conversation with them, by talking to them about their kids, their family, their work experience, things that are going on in their life. And that's what I do when I'm shooting video. I'm talking to them where they are right now about questions they have going on in their mind. And that's the easiest thing you can do. Don't wait for any fancy equipment. Don't go out and buy the most expensive stuff. You don't need it now. Instead, get the simplest thing you can find at your phone. You've got it on you. Just start talking.
Right. Thank you for that. I read a book because you keep talking about authenticity and you keep saying just be yourself. And there's a book called Marketing Rebellion. And one of the first sentences in that book is the most human marketer wins. And I think that's the same thing for lawyers. The most human lawyer wins, and so you have people that think they need to follow these rules from the TV world, the television world, where like lawyers used to make these stuffy commercials where they're either standing on top of an 18-wheeler yelling, or they're behind some law books in a three-piece suit. And so I need to do that if I'm going to get on YouTube. But you're telling us, no, you just be you. If you're the suit guy, if you're the suit guy standing on an 18-wheeler guy, sure, be that guy. But if that's not you, show up in your baseball cap and a t-shirt. People just want that human connection, because in the end, the most human lawyer wins. That's who's going to sign the client.
Dustin, I want to mention one other point, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
All marketing can work. It depends on how much money you want to throw at it. So the video is not the only marketing avenue. And you don't want to restrict yourself just to video, for example. But if you are just starting out and you're just starting over and you don't have access to money right away and you need to bootstrap and do something quickly, the video is, in my opinion, the best method to do that. You can take these exact same concepts and now use it for blog posts and articles on your website. You can use it in every other type of medium, whether it's TV or radio or newspapers, not that many people read them now, but every other type of marketing avenue. You can still use the same concepts. And again, if you don't have the money now, you're starting over, you're starting fresh, you're starting out of school, and you don't have a book of business, you don't have a big following, get onto video. And I'll tell you something, during COVID, my daughter, she was in college at the time, and she said to me, Dad, why don't you get on TikTok and create some legal marketing videos for TikTok? And I was very against doing that because I didn't want to look like the dancing lawyer that just points to things up in the air, and look really silly and crazy. And I also said to her, I don't believe that my ideal clients are on TikTok searching for an attorney for my specialty in New York. I don't believe that. And because of that, I clearly lost an opportunity to gain traction during COVID when very few attorneys were trying to use that platform. And my argument was, hey, I don't need to be on there because my clients, my ideal clients, are somewhere else. They're on YouTube, they're on Facebook, and they're on different platforms where they're actively searching. And the one thing I didn't recognize was the power of having those videos out there. And just like I mentioned at the beginning, somebody scrolling in their Instagram feed or their TikTok feed, and now they see you over and over and over again, even though they're not searching. But at one point, something catches their eye, and now they stop. Now they watch for a little bit. And then a few weeks later, again, the same thing. And then next thing you know, they're following you. And then a few months after that, next thing you know, you get a direct message from them saying, hey, I saw your videos on TikTok or Instagram. Can I ask you a question? I didn't see that coming up and the benefit of that. So that was something that I missed because I was focused on the mentality of, hey, my ideal clients are only on this type of platform and they would never be over here looking. So my suggestion is when you do create video, put it on every single platform, not with the expectation that somebody's immediately going to call you, but they're looking at it differently. People on YouTube are often searching. People on TikTok are scrolling. People on Instagram are scrolling. But the question is, can you connect with them subconsciously so they see you over and over and over again? I had this exact scenario with a guy who was offering investment advice on Instagram. Next thing I know, I kept seeing him over every couple of weeks, every couple of months, and finally got to the point where I began to relate to him to exactly what he was saying. And then I said, you know what? I could use his advice. Let me reach out to him. I never, ever would have contacted him without having seen him repetitively on Instagram. So don't hesitate for a second. Take it out, start talking, create those videos. And the next thing somebody would say was, well, how long should these videos be? And what should I be talking about? And those are all valid questions, but I wouldn't even focus on the length. I wouldn't focus on what their, the ideal things are. Focus on questions that you think need to be answered, whether that takes you 1 minute, whether that takes you 5 minutes. It doesn't matter in my opinion, because the longer you've connected with somebody, they will spend more time watching that content. I have videos that, are a couple of minutes, and I have videos that are 10, 15 minutes long. People watch both. And you never know how long they're going to watch or whether they'll watch the whole thing. The point is, start making them. And importantly, there's a book called The Slight Edge. And The Slight Edge says, look, if you do something small consistently over time, you will see dramatic results. Not immediately, but over time. And you create a video, one video today, and one video the next day, and one video the day after. At the end of a week, you've got 7 videos up online working for you. You do that the next week, you've now got 14. And you keep doing it. And these videos will work for you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can't get any better marketing message out than that.
Absolutely. One of the things you're doing here is dispelling the myths. A lot of these myths that hold us back from taking any action. And the 2 biggest myths that I have to overcome are, number 1, my clients aren't on insert platform here. YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That's the first one. Number 2, nobody wants to hear about bankruptcy law. Nobody wants to hear about medical malpractice. And your first video 17 years ago on YouTube, I wrote down the title. It's Medical Malpractice, How to Select an Attorney. That was in 2008, 408 views. 1 year later, your video, Dental Implant Horror Story, 251,000 views. That's your progress in 1 year. Now, if you would have told me there's 251,000 people who want to learn about medical malpractice law, I would have told you were crazy, right? Because your clients aren't on insert platform here. But the reality is our clients are people, and people hang out on the internet. So pick a platform and just educate, entertain, what we call edutainment. That seems to have been your strategy. And every legal practice area, like commercial litigation, nobody wants to hear about commercial litigation on the internet. Are you kidding? Everyone's getting screwed by their contractor or by a vendor, and they want to hear about these things. Bankruptcy, anything that's investment law, you name it, and certainly medical malpractice. What do you say to people who maybe say, I practice this obscure area of the law and nobody wants to hear about it, so I don't make videos?
I say that they are losing a key opportunity to get their name out in the world, so that the moment somebody does type in a search for that specific niche problem, they are the only ones who come up. They are the only ones who show up. So it's not, imagine you create, let's say, 2 or 3 videos. Maybe you'll get one video that shows up in response to a search. But now imagine that you've created 10, 20, 50, 100 videos on that niche topic. And now someone does a search. They are going to find page after page after page of only your videos, which basically pushes out all of your competitors who do the same exact type of thing, who clearly do not want to get involved in creating any video, so that now you are the only answer and the only respected authority that they will find to get that call. And I've noticed that in my area of practice, because the more that I continued creating video, the less my competitors wanted to compete with me online. Okay, so what I was saying is that somebody searching for medical malpractice in New York, they would go scrolling through page after page after page of my videos and literally pushing out all of my competitors who created only a couple or 1 or 2 videos. But because I had so many of, useful educational-based content material videos, they couldn't compete. And for the most part, I have seen that most attorneys in my area of law in New York have chosen not to do what I do. And so who do you think they're looking for, or who do you think they find when they do a search. They're going to find most of my videos, which means I have a greater chance of being called to ask questions than many of my competitors. So that is a remarkable strategy that's secondary simply by creating all this great consistent content.
Okay, well, I want to get to maybe some of the other things you might do, but I also want to give as many tips on video to our audience as possible. And it seems like it may be a numbers game, or are you saying during this first 30 days, I'm aiming for this many videos? Or are you saying during this first 30 days, I'm aiming to publish at this frequency? How do you handle that? Because it's obviously not just one video that you're going to publish.
I would do it one video a day. And actually, there are instances where you want to spread out those videos. So I feel, and I tried this sometimes, there was one point in my video career doing these videos where I would put out 3 videos a day. And I found that I was overwhelming people who were watching my videos and that they weren't watching most of them. And because I was putting them out so frequently and coming up with so much content. And I tried that for a while. And I thought, hey, look, I'm just going to flood the internet with all these great things. And then I realized, you know what? They don't get much traction. There's not much interaction with people who are looking at it and commenting. So I'm going to scale back. And then I went to once a day. And for me, also, there wasn't enough time for my area of law for people to gain traction because my videos don't go viral. It's not a topic like a criminal defense attorney talking about a case that's on trial, high-profile case that's, everybody's interested in, and you've got 500,000 people watching this. That's not my video area of expertise. It's not my area of specialty. Or immigration law, where that's a hot topic now. Okay, so I found that by scaling it back even more, putting out once every couple of days, I was getting much more traction. People are now finding my videos. People are commenting on them. They're having discussions in the comments section, unrelated to me personally, but directly related to my content. And now that was a sweet spot for me. So to answer your question, I think you have to find your sweet spot, and you won't know it initially. And I think sometimes if you put out one video a day, that may be overwhelming for some people. You may want to do it once every week, maybe once every few days, 3 or 4 or 5 days. You have to find that sweet spot, and the only way I can tell you is by experimenting. And then use the data that you see from people who are watching to then make an educated decision about whether to increase the frequency or whether to scale back. And if your videos are gaining traction, great. Now try adding another 1 or 2 in the next day or 2. If not, scale back and let it sit for a little bit. Let people get used to seeing you and know that and they become accustomed to your ultimate schedule. And it's funny, they will get concerned if you have not posted once you've set a schedule. For me, it's every 3 days. And I get comments and direct messages saying, hey, I haven't seen you posted. It's been 4 days now. Are you putting out another video? And so that's really cool when you see that. And it's also important, and this is really interesting, to get engagement on your videos means that people are interested in your content. And they may not reach out to you directly, but they like your content, they like what you're saying, they have questions or comments, something happened to them similar, and now they make a comment. In my opinion, you should definitely respond to every comment you can, if you're physically able to, because now you can start a conversation going, and other people see that there's interest in your content. And the more commenting you have from people who are watching, I think the algorithms recognize and somewhat reward you for the fact that this is a more interactive video than someone who just puts content on and moves on to the next thing, doesn't care about what happened in the past. So I would monitor your direct messages, I would monitor your comments, and in my opinion, definitely respond to those comments, even if it's to say, hey, thanks for leaving a message, thanks for commenting, or, that's interesting. Just whether it's a neutral comment, that's fine. Oh, one more thing before we get to video tips.
Okay.
One thing I think that is very useful when creating video is that as an attorney, you have certain viewpoints. You're hired to present your client's best position, which means you have a clear vantage point for, let's say, a plaintiff, or if you do criminal defense, for the defendant, or if you represent an immigration client, you have a clear viewpoint, and you are taking a position for one side or the other. I have always argued that lawyers should be opinionated, and they should take a hard position about things they feel passionate about. A lot of lawyers disagree with me, whether they're scared to voice their opinions for fear of repelling potential clients, for fear of offending their opponents, for fear of getting backlash from commenters. But I think that doing that, you have the best ability to have a backbone. And I think a lot of viewers appreciate the fact that you are coming out strongly in favor of this particular topic, and that you won't back down. And I'm not talking necessarily political viewpoints. I'm talking about legal viewpoints. Okay, because once you get into politics, forget it. That's a different ballpark, and it's nothing I would recommend getting into arguing about online. But from a legal standpoint, I would argue, listen, you have to take this position. This is what you need to look at. This is what you need to focus on. And doing that, I think, makes you a better communicator. And people understand that, and they feel more comfortable picking up the phone and calling someone who has a definite opinion, rather than someone who's wishy-washy and says, yeah, it could go this way, yeah, maybe it can go that way, even though many legal arguments are made on both sides. That's just another thought.
Yeah, that's a great thought as well. Russell Brunson, the creator of ClickFunnels, he says, follow your anger. If you don't know what else to talk about, follow your anger. And when I started out on YouTube, I was like, I'm just going to pick a fight with the industry. I hated the way SEO was sold. I hated the way lawyers were getting treated by advertising experts. And so every video was me talking about how SEO experts scam attorneys, or how nobody in marketing knows anything about marketing. They have a great degree on the wall, but they can't make money for a business. And I just picked a fight in every video with the industry, and I was opinionated. Some lawyers hated me for it. Other attorneys are kind of like your clients. They're waiting for every new video to come out. And if they ever need marketing, they're calling me, and there's no sales thing. And you've managed to do the same thing. You have people who are asking you, hey, when are you okay, Gerry? I haven't seen your video in 4 days, and if that person ever needs a medical malpractice lawyer, there is no other attorney that's getting that call. You're the lawyer in their life now. It's the difference between being the best versus being the only. You're the only lawyer in their life. You want to be the only, and that's what you've been able to do with YouTube and video marketing. Is very impressive.
Thank you.
How do you choose your video topics, since we've kind of broached that a bit? You've been talking about answering questions. How do you choose your video topics?
I have become a very big marketing student going back to 2006. And I'm a big follower of many of the people that you follow, as well as read many of the books that you've discussed. And you have to learn things about the nature of what attracts somebody to stop scrolling, the nature of what gets somebody to stop and think and say, hey, wait a second, that's something I was looking for. That's something I need to know. And I would always tell people when they're at the supermarket to read these, the National Enquirer, to read magazines like Cosmo, and to look at how they structure their headlines, and to look at how a book that has done so well, a drama or an episode on TV, how they structure things. And what I've come to see from all the marketing stuff I've learned is that people love drama. They love to learn about and watch conflict. They love to learn about the underdog. And so one of the great things I think you can do to help you create content that you need to know is look in your legal specialty to see where there is conflict. And in every area of law, there is always a conflict. And find that conflict. So in a personal injury case, it would be the conflict where a claims adjuster now believes your client's case is worth $10,000, but you believe the case is worth $1 million. And now take that conflict and begin to explain it. Explain why the claims adjuster sees it from their point of view. Explain why you see it from your point of view. And then go ahead and tell a story about what you were able to do for one of your clients to now explain to the claims adjuster how their viewpoint was not accurate, and now what you did, the steps that you took to let them know and open their eyes that the injuries your client suffered are much more significant than they initially thought. Where is the conflict? In my area of law, there's always conflict in the deposition. There's always a conflict with the documents that start the lawsuit. There's always a conflict when having an argument with an attorney about exchanging photographs. Do I have to exchange this? Do I not? At trial, there are tons of arguments. Every time an attorney objects, there's an argument. Why is an attorney objecting? What is the objection about? What does the judge have to do in order to address and resolve the objection? All of these things, create a little timeline for yourself. And try and identify every single place in the timeline from when a client first comes to you up until the time the case is finished. And identify every single point where you can see a conflict or where there's drama. Let's say, again, in my area of expertise, let's say a settlement offer has been made. My client refuses to accept it. What happens in that instance? Will there be a greater offer? Who do I have to convince my client? What do I have to show my client? There's so many topics to talk about once there is conflict and drama. The moment you focus on that, everybody will relate to it and understand what's happening. In every high-profile criminal case, there is drama. And it's drama because this one said something different than what the police said. This piece of evidence shows something different than what this person said. You've got conflict, you've got drama. Make it about the human conflict and answer the questions about how to solve that conflict, or even better, what you did to solve a situation where you resolved that drama. And now, you don't have to say, I've been doing this for 30 years and look what I did to help this person. No, no, no.
All right. And
say,
you are obviously a video marketing expert. So most of your marketing efforts seem like they're going to be on video. What are maybe 2 or 3 of your other concerns and solutions during this first 30 days?
I would try and reach out to every opponent that you have ever faced, and I would ask them for a recommendation on Google for you. And I mean that sincerely. And I would tell them, look, I lost everything. I really need to ramp up my practice immediately. And the best thing that I could ever do would be to get an honest opinion from you by doing a Google review for me personally. And if you could do that, I would appreciate it. And you can say whatever you want, but I would just like you to say something about me. And, you know, like when you buy a car, somebody says, hey, you give me the best rating and I want you to, otherwise I'm going to lose my job or get dinged. No, I would tell my opponents that I had dealt with, whether we had a good relationship or not, I said, listen, I really don't care what you say about me. Obviously, it would be great if you said something nice, but I want you to give an honest feedback so that people who begin looking for me and searching for me can actually go ahead and understand what I did and how I helped my client. And if we had fights about it, great, you can talk about it. I have no problem. Years ago, when I would lecture to attorneys across the country about content for their videos, I would make this suggestion and this recommendation, and I would tell them that this is something that no one in the country is doing. And I would create content that talks about your opponent, not by name, okay, in the video, but talk about those things that they were doing that made you a better attorney, or something, or an argument that you had. Um, you never want to disparage anyone, ever. Most attorneys, and I should say, no, every single lawyer that I spoke to did not take me up on that. And another thing, I told attorneys during my lecture, I would lecture to thousands of attorneys across the country every year. I would say, create video about those cases that you lost. And everybody would come up to me and say, are you kidding? I can't talk about the case that I lost. I can't talk about the case that I didn't win. I said, you are 100% wrong. Just because you lost a case doesn't mean you're not a good attorney. Everybody loses a case, especially if they're a trial attorney, at one point or another. But if you describe the process of what you did and explain about how the client loved you, despite the fact that you lost, and explain what led the jury to reach that conclusion, you're explaining the process. And nobody took me up on that. And that stands out. So somebody's looking, everybody thinks I have to show that I'm the greatest, I'm always winning, there's no possibility I could ever lose. But nobody on their websites, nobody in their marketing messages, no one ever talks about the case they lost, the case that they gave up 2 years worth of their life to, the case that they spent $200,000 prosecuting. Nobody. But the moment you start doing it, and I've done it, explaining it, people are like, oh my God, he's being honest about what happened to him, and he's not shying away from that. Don't be afraid to talk about things that nobody else wants to talk about. So getting back to asking for reviews, I know attorneys who would gladly do a review because I've become friends with them over time. I know attorneys who I shouldn't say hate, but dislike, who I would still reach out to and still ask for a review, and tell them, whatever you say, I don't care. You say I was horrible, fine. You say I'm a miserable human being, fine, I don't care. You know why? Because it will help when doing a search. And then if you have all perfect reviews, something's wrong with you. There's something too good to be true. There's got to be somebody who says something negative about you. And if you don't, I'm going to question, just like when you're doing a review for a product, you're buying a car, you're buying a TV, whatever. If you see all great reviews, you're going to suspect that, maybe these aren't real reviews. That's one of the things that I would do that I don't think anybody does.
Man, I'm going to clip that little soundbite. If you have all perfect reviews, there's something wrong with you, and send it to every one of my clients, because I get an email after every non-5-star review that my client gets. Like, we got to get this off the thing. It's like, no, you're going to get some bad reviews every now and then. In Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, he says, I'm going to teach you how to get anything you've ever wanted. So I want you to assume a position, get your pen ready to take notes, and get in a mind state where you're ready to hear what I'm going to say. How to get anything you want out of life. Ask. Right? And it's so simple that it's genius. And you say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do the video marketing, but I'm going to reach out to my network and ask for a review. I'm going to tell them that, hey, I've lost everything. You've been on the other side of the aisle from me before. Can I get a review? People don't think of that. Most attorneys, your mom doesn't really know what you do. She knows you practice law, but she doesn't really know what you do. None of your Facebook friends really know what kind of lawyer you are. They know you went to law school, but they don't really know what you do. And they can't refer you any business. And it's simply because you haven't asked yet. And this is why I do these podcasts. That is such a novel idea. I've asked my friends for help. I've never asked my opponents. And some of them would gladly give me a bad review or a good review. If nothing else, then just to be associated with me, to steal some of my audience for their own benefit. That's great advice. I'm going to use that today. Ask some of my opponents and talk about some of my losses. Not every client at my marketing agency has been happy. And man, those would be great stories to get on Instagram and talk about. Here's a personal injury lawyer that fired me. Here's what I did wrong. Here's what I learned from it. Here's why you should hire me. It's
Exactly.
just so counterintuitive. Go ahead, man. What are you going to say there?
It's awesome. I mean, that's exactly the whole point. You've lost everything, and now you're trying to scramble and get cases again, and you don't know where to start. So start with what you know, which means you have a group of people you've worked with before. Reach out to them, ask them for assistance, and you know what? Along those same lines, I would ask those opponents, hey, can I interview you? Can I ask you about a case that we tried or a case that we had together, and tell me why you thought your strategy was so much better than my client's strategy? Tell me why, and assuming the case is over, you can't talk, at least in New York, you can't talk about cases that are active and ongoing. But give me a sense of your insight into why you thought my client's injuries were not as bad as we claim them to be. Tell me what you had to do to report back to your principals to establish that we did have a great damages case, and what you did from the negotiation standpoint. And so what am I doing now? I'm now giving them a platform to talk about things that they did, to highlight what they are good at, and now I'm interviewing them, just like we're doing now, and giving them an open platform to talk about strategies, while now we're talking about things that we did on a case together. And just like I commented on certain things that you have done that I have seen, I'm going to notice the same thing. They tell me, hey, Gerry, I saw that you did this strategy during the case, and that was phenomenal. Okay, so it works both ways, and somebody watching that, like, oh, wow, he really had that strategy. Oh, somebody's complimenting him. He's an opponent. He's actually giving a compliment to his opponent. How is that possible? Just by an interview like that. And I think that's very compelling.
Thank you for that. Before I let you go, there's some lawyers out there and they're struggling. It's not easy to run a business, and that's all a law firm is a business. And 90% of businesses fail. What do you tell the attorney who what do you leave us with? We're in the grind and it just doesn't seem to be working. What do you say to that attorney?
You have to decide whether you want to be the business owner or whether you want to be the guy doing the work, doing the legal grunt work. If you want to do both, it's certainly possible to do it, but you take on different roles and different hats. You have to make the decision of where you were before and what led you to this place now. If you were the guy doing just the work and you had no marketing involvement and nothing to bring in new cases, you have to re-examine what you were doing to wonder, explore why you got to the position you're in now. If things were not under your control, then you may want to say, okay, I now have the opportunity to rebuild. Do I want to be the business owner and build a business where now I can hire other people to do the daily case, daily day-to-day work of handling the cases and speaking to the clients and everything that goes into the daily operations? Do I want to be the marketing person to generate new cases and deal with intake and hold the client's hand throughout the course of the litigation? Or do you want to try and do both? And there are trade-offs to each one. There are pros and cons. And that's not a simple question to answer, because you will likely struggle with both. And especially if you don't have the experience of marketing and you don't have the experience of running the business, you're going to struggle. And it's all a matter of whether you have the time, the effort, the energy, the money to continue your path while still struggling. You may decide, screw it all, I'm going to go join a firm, and I don't have to deal with any of this. That's fine. You may decide, you know what, I want to be the entrepreneur. I want to run a business. And if I get to the point where I have enough cases I can handle and hire somebody else, I will definitely do that and scale back the day-to-day stuff. So I think that's a personal question that each person has to answer. I don't think you could say one size fits all.
Well, great. Thank you for that, Gerry. We're closing out here. Where can we find Gerry Oginski online? And do you have any new products or services you can promote to our audience?
The easiest way is to go onto YouTube and just type in New York medical malpractice attorney and see what shows up. And start scrolling through the pages. And if you see my name come up over and over and over again on these videos, just click on one of them. Just watch it for a little bit. And then watch the next one that YouTube suggests with my name on it. And watch the next one. And then at some point, you're going to understand why these concepts that I've been discussing with you are so important and why they work. And importantly, that's the real point here, is that they work. This is not theory. This is something that actually works in practice. And so I think if you take this information that we've been talking about today, and you now start to implement by creating those videos, taking your phone out, just start creating those videos and putting them out there every couple of days, you will see traction, you will see results, but it does take some time. And it's not going to happen overnight. But just do it consistently, and next thing you know, you'll realize the results, just like Dustin always talks about with working out, with building a better body, better mindset, and I think it's remarkable.
Well, Gerry, you are a gift to the legal community. I'm so proud to have you on the show. Thanks a lot for coming on. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you, Dustin.